Thanks for checking out the I Am More Than podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Wessel, a former Miss Arizona USA, professional model, self-acceptance advocate, hype girl, and founder of More Than Inc. In this podcast, we talk about the things that actually matter, from mental health to health and wellness, body image and confidence, and social issues. We're here to uplift, educate, inspire, and grow together. Each week, we'll feature a unique and incredible woman to share her story of how she's so much more than whatever you may know her as. We'll laugh, cry, and feel inspired in every episode, and trust me, there's no topic off limits. Whether you're commuting, working, or enjoying a glass of wine, we're so honored to have you here, and I'm excited to welcome you to the More Than movement. We're just getting started. This episode is brought to you by Equilibria. Equilibria is a premium CBD company made by women for women. The two founders wanted to share the healing powers of CBD for chronic pain, mental health, stress management, and so much more. My girlfriend introduced me to Equilibria back in 2019 while we were on a modeling job together. I expressed my struggle with anxiety, constant hip and back pain, and frequent headaches and stomach aches. She convinced me to order a signature box with their daily drops, soft gels, and relief cream, and I have never looked back. The coolest part about Equilibria is they have a full-time dosage specialist who works with each customer directly to figure out how to best use their products to improve the quality of your life. They understand that everybody is different. After 3 months of consistent use, I cut my anti-anxiety medication in half, and I've noticed I'm sleeping so much better. Equilibria is backed by science and created with 0 fillers delivered straight to your door. With a wide variety of products, there truly is something for everybody. We've teamed up to offer our listeners 15% off your first order with code MORETHAN. Now let's dive into the episode. This week's guest is an entrepreneur, a designer, photographer, content creator, model, and podcast host. She self-funded her swimwear company with the intention of creating a designer feel without the high price tag. In this episode, she chats about pushing through fear and how she launched her successful company. We talk about overcoming body image struggles, taking care of yourself from the inside out, comparison culture, and authenticity on social media. She also opens up about her mental health struggles with anxiety and panic attacks in hopes it can help any of our listeners feel less alone. She recently launched her own podcast called Making It with Molly J, where she highlights female entrepreneurs from a variety of industries. She recently featured me on the podcast to chat all about building confidence and creating more than, so be sure to check it out right after this episode. I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend, Molly J. Curley. Welcome to the I Am More Than podcast, Molly. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
It's so good just to see your face again. We were just catching up. It's been a year because, of course, we didn't see each other in 2020. So It's so nice to just finally see you and catch up with you.
I know. It's been too long.
I know it has been. And the first time we ever met each other, I was just so captivated by your hustle. Like, you are involved in so many different things and you're just such a light and so enjoyable to be around. So I'm really excited for this audience to get to know you. So for those of you who don't know who Molly is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, you are so sweet. Thank you so much. So I do a lot of different things, but everything I do works together. So that's kind of how I always preface it. So my main thing is my brand, which is called Molly J The Label. It's mainly a swimwear company. And then I'm also a photographer. I also do modeling, do a lot of social media work, have a podcast. So everything is kind of in that same sort of creative space and they can all work together. But yeah, those are kind of my quick little what I do.
I love it. Like I said in the beginning, you're involved in literally everything. But the thing I was so intrigued by when we first got talking about your swimwear label and how you created the brand is you just figured it out. Like, it didn't sound like anybody really gave you a rule book on how to establish it. So I'd love to hear about the early days of building up your brand and kind of how you decided to segue into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always knew that I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. Both my parents were entrepreneurs. So my brother and I grew up just thinking that that was normal and that that's what you were supposed to do. So we didn't think that you were supposed to, go get a job for someone else. We thought you were just supposed to start a company because that's what we saw our parents doing. So my parents aren't in the creative space. My mom is a corporate recruiter and my dad is a home builder. So even though they are entrepreneurs, they didn't have like the creative type experience that I would need to start my company. So like you said, I basically just completely, I like to say I Googled it because it's pretty much what I did. I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial and I love the beach and love the ocean. And I love design. So that's kind of why I got into swimwear. I always say it's kind of funny because in my mind, I was like, swimwear has got to be like the easiest thing in terms of design, right? Because it's like the least amount of fabric. So that was my thought process as a college student when I was trying to figure all this out. But so I went to Bentley University. I studied sales and marketing there. And I actually finished my degree in 3 years. I kind of just always always wanted to get out. Yeah. I was just that type of person that I feel like there's two types of people in college. You either love it or you hate it. And like, I didn't necessarily hate it. Like I had a great time, but I also felt like I was kind of just like stagnant. Like I just wanted to get out into the real world and start like building my career. And I wanted to make money. Like, honestly, I just kind of wanted to start making money and like be on my own. So I finished my degree in 3 years and I used that third year to start my business. And I was like, okay, I have this year. If it fails, I'll just get a normal job on the normal timeline with all my friends. And like that was kind of where my head was at that point. And then, yeah, I kind of just figured it out as I went. Obviously, the first thing was finding a manufacturer, which honestly was the hardest process so far. I was really set on having really high quality, but at more of an affordable price point. And that was very, very hard to find. It was very hard to do in America. Like that just wasn't really an option for me. I looked at so many manufacturers and it just didn't end up being an option. So then I moved to overseas and I finally found someone, but it took like 9 months to find a manufacturer and so much money spent. And I've completely self-funded too. Like I didn't take money from my parents. I didn't take money from outside investors. I just figured if, I'm pouring my own heart and money into this, I'm going to be way more driven and not want to lose it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely self-funded, lost a lot of money in the beginning, but it ended up working out because I found a great manufacturer who I have a great relationship with and they have amazing quality. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
That's amazing. You have to have a lot of hustle and a lot of internal drive to put your own finances on the line, to put your really career in your own hands and try to make something work. I mean, that's a thing that I think a lot of people want to do, but I think fear kind of holds them back. How did you push through all that self-doubt and that fear in the beginning? And how do you still do it today?
Absolutely. No, I always say, I think fear is the number one thing that holds people back. I would say one, I do think I had an advantage of being young because I think when you're a little bit younger, like you're more apt to take risks, like I don't have a family that I need to support. I don't have, these big life decisions. Like I was young, I was right out of college and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. And it was just kind of that like mindset. I just couldn't let fear hold me back because I was putting my own money into it. And because I was literally putting everything I had into it. Yeah. Like there wasn't an option to fail. And I do suggest having other streams of income while you're trying to do this, because obviously I still had to pay my rent. And at that point I was living in New York. I had, not a cheap rent. I was still modeling at the time. And obviously, like that kind of schedule, I was able to work it into running my company too.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
So when you started and still what you're doing now, are you designing all the swimwear and picking out fabrics? And how does that whole process work?
Yeah. So I do pretty much everything by myself. Obviously, my mom loves to help with the design. She's like DMing me stuff all the time whenever she sees something. But yeah, no, I do the full design process. So I'm not the best artist, but in my head, I can completely imagine something. So usually what I'll do is I'll sketch it to the best of my ability, and then I will write in a Word document, like exactly down to every single detail, what I'm thinking. And then I send that to my manufacturer, and their pattern maker basically just takes all that information and makes me a sample. Usually takes 2 to 3 samples to get it where I need to be. But now, since I've been doing this for a few years, I do have a really great relationship like with my pattern makers and stuff, where I feel like they kind of just like get me. And now it's usually like, it can sometimes even just be one sample and like, it'll be perfect. So definitely very streamlined, But
Yeah.
yeah, that's design process works.
Are you your own fit model?
Yeah. So
Well, you do
I
everything.
I know, right? So I usually, yeah, I fit it on me. And then also like my brother's girlfriend will always try it on. Sometimes my mom will try them on. I like to have different body types to be able to try things on. But yeah, I
Wow.
literally everything is in-house.
Girl, I respect it. That's awesome.
Oh,
So
thank
tell me how
you.
you ended up in New York.
So that was actually because of my fiance. So I had always wanted to go to New York. It was always something that was on my mind, especially growing up modeling. Like I, always had that dream to live in New York. And then when I met my now fiance, he was 2 grades above me in college. So he moved to New York for a job. And it was kind of just like great timing where he was going to New York. I was so ready to go to New York. So once I finished that 3rd year of college and was finished with school, that's when I moved to New York. And yeah, I signed with a modeling agency there. I was doing that. Then I got into the photography. I was doing all the blogging work there. So it was really fun. I loved it, but I was very ready to get back to Boston too. Both of us were.
Totally. New York is a whole different beast.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And what agency were you with in New York?
I was with a few there. So, oh my gosh, why am I blanking? True, true. Oh my
True.
gosh, that was so bad. Yeah, I was with True there.
And did you have a positive experience in the industry? Was that always something like you were kind of half in, half out? Were you ready to leave? Walk me through that.
I loved modeling in Boston because Boston, I had all of like my fitness clients. Like I worked for Reebok a ton, New Balance, like all of the major fitness companies I worked for a lot. And then before I moved to New York, I went down to Miami and I modeled there for like a few seasons. And I feel like it was at that point where like honestly, my health kind of declined because I got caught up in the whole modeling world. And looking back, I'm like, it was so unhealthy. And like, I was not in a good place. Like, I was like close to 30 pounds lighter than I am now. And like, it was just not a healthy lifestyle. Like, I
Yeah.
was abusing my body. I was not doing the right things at all. And it's so sad because like, I look back on that and I literally thought I was bad. Like, I look back at those now, looking back at the pictures, I'm like, oh my gosh, I look scary. But like, I remember being in that moment, like, even if my mom was like taking a picture of me for Instagram, like, I remember like arguing with her that I looked bad and that I like looked like not skinny and looked fat. And it was like so unhealthy. So I feel like honestly, like once I kind of had that like mindset shift, it's kind of when I did phase out of like the modeling a little bit and kind of when I'm more focused on like social media. And the reason I like social media is like you can completely control the narrative. And like social media is about like brands hire you for your voice and your influence, not for what you look like. And so that's kind of where that shift happened. But I mean, I did have a lot of great experiences, but looking back, I'm like, it definitely was not, not all good. And it was definitely pretty unhealthy.
Yeah. How did you get yourself out of that? Did you have to have like a hard conversation with yourself at one point where you were like, I got to get out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's like certain situations with like, even with John, where like, so I was prescribed Adderall for school, like for ADHD for school, and definitely helped me with school, but it also put me into that state of not eating.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of honestly where it was like the big change for me where I was like, okay, like this is so not healthy. And like, even though like I wasn't doing anything wrong, I was prescribed it. Like it was my prescription, like it was completely legal, but
Yeah.
was not healthy. And I do not think I was in a healthy mindset to be able to handle that. So it's hard to like pinpoint one specific moment. That was definitely a turning point where I was like, okay, I'm like destroying my body right now. And it's just, yeah, it was so unhealthy.
Yeah. I think that's such a common thing that I think, especially, I don't know what it's like for women younger than us now, but I know that I was prescribed Adderall too in high school and in college.
Yeah.
And when you're actually prescribed it because you actually need it, like there's so many benefits But I
Yeah,
remember when it shifted in my mind too, that it was like, oh, this is kind of like a diet pill on top of like just focus. And then I noticed people that didn't have ADHD or any of the symptoms that would get you Adderall, and they started abusing it. It was such a common thing that I feel like you would see women doing that all the time. And I still see women doing it all the time, that I don't think many understand how actually terrible it is for you, and that it's destroying your insides.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you understand that. Cause I feel like sometimes it's like hard to talk about, because I don't want someone to think I was like, abusing drugs or something. But it's like, once you like get that taste of like, okay, this can so easily help me get to where I think I need to be. It's just, it like sucks you in.
Yeah. And that's such a common thing that I've heard so much. And the same thing being that like, well, I wasn't doing drugs. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I wasn't harming my body on purpose. That was almost like a side effect that I kind of liked. That I think so many people just need to realize that like, if you are taking this for that benefit, like there's an issue. There's a much bigger issue there.
And that's, I think once I realized that, it was like, okay, this is not okay.
Yep. And I'm glad that you had a support system too, that was helping you transition out of that. And I think being a woman is hard, point blank, whether you're in this industry, whether you're not in the industry. I think comparing yourself to others and thinking that you need to change yourself is something that every single woman goes through. How did you kind of step out of comparison culture and try and like just focus in your own lane?
I really feel like as women, like we'll never fully be out of that. Cause I mean, I still do that. Like if I'm being completely honest with myself, I definitely still do that. I think it's just, you have to like build up your own self-worth, and you have to separate like your body image or your job or whatever it is, like from your self-worth, and get that like from within or from, a higher power, wherever you get that from. It needs to come from that and not from your outside appearance. And it's hard though. Like, I feel like I don't have all the answers. Like it's definitely hard, and I still struggle with that. But I definitely have come a long way, I'd say.
Yeah. I feel like that's something that we bonded on one of the first times that we were ever hanging out. And I also, this is just popping in my mind. There's things that you like carry deep within yourself that you never want to tell other people because you're afraid to like be embarrassed. And I remember talking to you about the fact that I had really bad anxiety. And when we were shooting, I was like, I just need to always kind of know my surroundings or else my anxiety peaks up. And you were like, wait, I have the same thing.
Yeah.
And the more we started talking about it and the more we started like diving into it, you realize that you're really not alone. And I think the same thing happens when it comes to your self-confidence and your body image. Once you open up about what you're struggling with, you realize everybody's in the same boat and you can learn from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's honestly kind of one of the reasons that I did want to move out of New York. Like, I do feel like New York gave me so much more anxiety than I already had. Like there's a few times on the subway where like I legit had like a panic attack, and like I had never had that before. And it was really scary because like I didn't know what was happening. Like it was like I didn't have control over my body. Like it was super scary. And I was, alone with a bunch of strangers on a tiny little train. So I think there was just like a few things that happened in New York where I was just like, I like was just so ready to get out of there. And
I'm with you. I think that there's so much I gained from that. And I feel like anytime you're out of your comfort zone, and mental health affects everybody in a different way. That I know you had talked about having panic attacks for the first time. I also experienced panic attacks before going to New York, but they were heightened a lot when I was in New York, but I didn't know what to call it. And so instead of like talking about it and being like, hey, is this normal? It was like, I can't let anybody know that this is something that I struggle with.
Absolutely. Like, I feel like they're like looking back on my life, like I definitely probably experienced that before, but I just had no idea. And I feel like it's like, it's something that isn't talked about a lot. And like, you're not taught it in school. And like, it's just not a super relevant topic in terms of like parenting and stuff like that, where, I probably did, but I just didn't know. And then when I got to New York and they were just, like you said, heightened, I think I was able to understand a little bit more, but still not fully understand why. Yeah.
It's hard to pinpoint. And I also think that stress manifests itself in really weird ways. Anxiety
Yeah.
manifests itself in really weird ways. And for me, I've always been a very anxious person, but it only affects my stomach. And so
Yeah.
and that's also something I
That's what we
remember as
bonded over,
bonding
right?
over. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
and it's funny because the more I've talked about this, which given for 25 years, I've tried to keep it completely shut that like, no, that's not what I talk about. My stomach is always hurting, but like, it's not a big deal. And once I started talking to people about the fact that like, no, I have really bad anxiety, but it's only ever in my stomach, they were like, oh my God, me too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel like so many people deal with it, but so many people don't know what to call it and they don't understand that it stems from anxiety.
Yep.
Like, I think I also do think like the older generation doesn't understand enough, like
Yep.
sometimes I think like my mom might not be able to fully understand that that's where it's coming from. Like, yeah,
Yep.
it's just kind of hard because yeah, I definitely like a couple of years ago, I was literally in and out of doctors like for a whole year straight. Like literally in and out of doctors. I saw like a neurologist. I saw so many like gastrointestinal doctors and like my body is completely healthy. But it's
Yeah.
so crazy how your mind can affect your physical body so much, but like a doctor can't really diagnose that, like unless
Mm-hmm.
something's happening in that moment, or I don't even know if they would be able to see it then. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, doctors just kept telling me I was fine, like everything's okay. And then it would, like then my mom would be like, you're fine. What are you like, why are you having these issues? And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just like didn't understand.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people understand because subconsciously, it's like even in our current state of mind, you can be like, oh, I'm completely fine. But subconsciously, if you're worried or anxious about something, it has to find a place to like alert you that something's
Yeah.
going on. I think for a lot of people, it's stomach aches, it's headaches, it's body aches, but you
Yeah.
just don't really know what to pinpoint it. And that's why I think this wider conversation of mental health is really opening up a lot of people's eyes because people might think like, oh, I've had a stomach ache every time I go into my office, but I thought that was
Yeah.
just normal. That's like,
Yeah.
no, that's a bigger picture. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that through these
Absolutely.
conversations, if somebody's listening and they're like, oh, me too. Yep, you're not alone. And we know what it is, anxiety.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yep. And now that you guys have been back in Boston and things are opening up a little bit, how do you really handle any of your anxiety or panic attacks or anything that comes with that? How do you keep it at bay?
That's the thing. Like, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I don't know. I think it's just like trying to keep my mindset really positive. But I think that can also turn into a negative sometimes when you try to stay so positive and then you suppress the negative and it's like a vicious cycle, Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of just, having a support system, having people you love and that care about you always around. That's always important. But again, even like if you don't have that though, like you have to kind of just find that within. And I think being able to recognize that it is anxiety helps so much because
Mm-hmm.
then like you can, like deep breathing, things that like can calm it down, but like knowing, you're not dying from some sort of gastrointestinal issue is always helpful too.
Yep, that's always a big help. Well, you had
Yeah.
even said something on your social media, just being authentic and open and real with people, because,
Yeah.
like you said, social media is a highlight reel, and you were really
Yeah.
vulnerable just talking about the stuff that you're struggling with. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So this happened on Friday. We were going into our it was before we left our apartment. So like I said, we're getting married down in Newport. We live in Boston. So we had like a little over a 2 hour drive because there was so much traffic down to Newport. And I don't know what happened or why, but I like put on the dress that I was going to wear. It was a little bit tight. So like I just felt like restricted in it. And I don't know if it was just like that feeling of being trapped or like feeling so restricted, just somehow like triggered a panic attack that like I had not had in a long time. And I honestly at first didn't really know that that's what that was. But it was so weird. Like my stomach started hurting. My stomach started getting all bloated. I started like sweating and then I started like uncontrollably crying. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And like even John was like, why are you crying? He was like, what is wrong with you? Like, because I feel like also sometimes like not everyone's gonna get it. And like he doesn't deal with that at all. So like he doesn't understand all the time. So it was just so weird and such like an out of body feeling. And then, yeah, I mean, I texted like one of my girlfriends who I know like deals with a lot of anxiety. And I asked her, I was like, can this happen from like nothing? Cause I was like, nothing happened. Like, it's not like it was from just the dress. I was like, nothing major happened. Like, and she was like, absolutely. She was like, that's like the whole point. She was like, that's literally like if you just have, a lot of stress that just builds up and then just like comes to a peak, like it's totally normal and stuff. And I, like you said, I think just having that like validation that it's not like wrong or like something, nothing's wrong with you. Like it's normal and it happens and plenty of people go through it.
Yep.
Yeah. And I wanted to share that. Like I was going back and forth. I wanted to share it on Instagram. And then I was actually with a couple of my girlfriends this weekend and we were talking about social media and talking about how it's literally just a highlight reel. And like, it's so important to be real and vulnerable, like on that platform, because if not, like you're just putting up this like facade that you have a perfect life. And like, no one really wants to see that. Like, you don't want to scroll through and be like, oh my God, she's so perfect. Like, I hate her, like that's not really enjoyable. Like you want to know that you can relate to someone and stuff. So I think it's just, yeah, you have to like humanize yourself and show that everything's not perfect all the time.
You're so right. I love that word, humanize it, because exactly what you were just saying. It's if we get onto social media and if you're following particular people that have never been open about that stuff, that just kind of put on that facade that things are perfect, who are they really helping? Like it, I don't think
what's the point?
What's the point? And I don't think that's what people want to see anymore. And I also think that people are still very uncomfortable with the idea of vulnerability and authenticity in that way, that sometimes it's forced authenticity when it's like, if you just talk about the stuff that's actually going on in your life, that's enough.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I've been trying to be better about that because obviously like it's hard and it's scary. Yeah. But a lot of people DM me and like thanked me for showing it. Like older people, like some of like my like older family and stuff like messaged me and were like, thank you so much for talking about this. Like it's just not, especially in like their generation, like the older generation, they just don't talk about it. And it's so sad.
And it's so funny that we all have so much more in common than we don't. Like
absolutely
everybody is dealing with something similar and yet we're still scared to share it. So it's like the few brave people that then speak about it and share it. Everybody else is like, finally, somebody talked about it.
Well, I feel like we live in a very polarizing world right now. And I think everyone's afraid of offending people. So I think people are just kind of like afraid to talk about things, like people are afraid to be open and honest because they're afraid of being judged or they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. And, like it's just a very kind of strange time we're in.
It's a very strange time. And I think that we're missing the human connection that I think we're all craving because we all want that. We all want the same thing. We want to build authentic relationships. And I also think that when you do connect with somebody on a deeper level than like fashion, when it's like, hey, let's talk about our anxiety real quick, that builds a much stronger foundation for an actual relationship, an actual conversation. And I think that's what people are craving.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Hopefully anybody that's listening to this right now feels like they're in the room with us and can just chat about all the stuff that they're dealing with too, because it's just, we need this. We need these conversations.
Yeah. It's real life.
Yep. It's real life. So back in Boston, you are working on your photography, you're working on your blog. I saw you have a huge YouTube following too. Like you're doing a lot of things.
Thank you. I know. I just got started on TikTok too.
Get it, girl.
I'm trying to be on all the platforms. But yeah, no, everything's going well. Obviously, planning a wedding on top of it. It's been a very busy year. But yeah, no, everything's been going well, which I'm thankful for.
And you launched a podcast not too long ago. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I launched a podcast all about female entrepreneurs. So I always would get DMs about like, how do you start a company? How did I start my brand? Like so many business focused questions. And I also have been wanting to network more with women. And I was like, this is the perfect way to do both, where I can bring value to people, but I can also talk to incredible women and learn from them. So it's been a really cool experience. I've had some amazing women on the show. And yeah, I'm really excited for the future of that.
I think podcasting is such a cool way to connect with other people and to get to know each other's stories and to really dive into those deeper conversations.
Yeah, and I feel like especially this past year, podcasts have just grown in popularity so much because, there's only so much music you can listen to and so many walks outside you can do the same music. Like people just have been listening to podcasts so more. So it's such a great time.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And what are you seeing in the future for Molly J, the label?
Yeah, so I am expanding this summer into more size inclusivity. So that was always something that I wanted to do, but it came down to pricing. And like I said, because I was self-funding, like I just didn't have the budget that a lot of these bigger brands have. And the more sizes you have, the more expensive it is to produce. So at this point, I've only had small, medium, and large, but I will be expanding into extra large this summer and expanding into some more styles that will fit more body types. So I'm just hoping for it to be more of an inclusive brand. It's always been important to me. And I'm happy that I'm finally able to do it this summer.
That's really exciting. Just seeing yourself represented, whether you are a small or whether you are an extra large or double XL or whatever it is. I think that now knowing that brands are expanding into that, it's showing people that there's no wrong size. There's no wrong body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I've been just using like a lot of my friends and stuff for photos, and I've been doing all the photos myself. So like there hasn't been like an intentional reason, for not having different body sizes. It's kind of just been what's available to me. I got a DM recently of someone saying like, why have I not shown different body types? And it's like, it's not intentional that I haven't, but I'm really excited that I will be able to this summer.
Well, you're a one-woman show. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
You're doing the best you can.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people, when they just see the brand, like they don't really know what's behind the scenes.
Yep. Are you thinking of expanding your team at some point? Is that the goal?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of great people that I work with on like more of like a contract basis.
Yeah.
Like I have someone who runs my social media for me, which has been really helpful. Obviously my manufacturers and everyone on that end has been really great, but I definitely hope to expand in the future. That's definitely the goal.
Well, you're freaking killing it. I'm so proud of you. And I'm so excited that I got so much time to chat with you. And I'm just excited to see what you do next.
Oh, thank you so much.
If you're loving the I Am More Than podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review. It helps us so much. And if you haven't already, follow us on Insta at More Than Inc. for all things inspo, More Than merch, and soon we'll be posting info about our in-person meetups. We're so thankful to have you part of this community and are always here to remind you that you are so much more than. We'll see you next week.